What's up, guys? Happy Sunday. I know we're back at our episode. Welcome to the Why Day podcast. I got Aunt Shirley here. I got Red Pill, Markel. And then I got Alpha Monk, Mondre. I mean, I know we're not using the real names here. If you guys want to still, we can. But, you know, it don't matter.
Right? Once you start tagging people and live casting it, kind of ruins the whole nickname thing.
Yeah, it does. It does. You know, yeah. This is episode 12, I think. Man, we're knocking these episodes out, man. We've been busy as hell on our end. So I'm in a new setting. So I'm in my room right now. I moved some shit around. I got a nice little studio right here, but it's next to a window, so I can see people outside in front of my porch. So it's perfect for me. Right. But yeah, guys. So the last episode I had, this is the first time we ever had a couple on our episode. Mm-hmm. I know Aunt Shirley was on there. She was killing it. She had a few questions to ask, a lot of things that hopefully it's helped you in a way where, you know, how couples work, especially during the quarantine times. Yeah. I know it's kind of tough right now. We're practicing social distancing. We're far away from each other right now, but we're all doing this all through digital. Shout outs to all the programs and things that's making it happen. But we can recap. We can still recap on this interracial dating because last week was pretty interesting. So I'm going to try my best to mediate everything. So let's make sure we keep it quick, safe, and not throwing knives at each other. So if you guys have anything you want to add on to it, you can from the last episode of interracial dating.
I think I've said my piece on interracial dating.
Okay.
I will add, though, for people who didn't see that episode and are now watching this episode, nothing wrong with interracial dating. You can date outside your race. It's totally okay.
Yeah, to second that, it's totally okay to date outside your race. I just think it's important to be conscious of the reasons why you are dating outside your race. And talking to the couple last week, they are both Asian, but there's also differences that they have even within their relationship. But one of the things that they said that was really important, that at least one of the things that like had impact on me was the feeling at home with people who are within your race and not feeling like you're being exotified was really important. And that's what made their relationship like really strong.
Yeah. Okay.
Were they the same race?
Yeah. One's Filipina, third generation, and then the other one's Vietnamese, first generation.
And Chinese, he's first gen. Yeah. It's a little different. I think a couple of generations a little different. Third generations, like you are like.
I mean, I hopped on and off when I was watching it. Just to see what you guys are talking about. So it seemed pretty cool.
Yeah, I know it was good, man. It was pretty good.
And how would you say their relationship was? Was it a strong relationship or?
Okay, so because of the quarantine, they're seeing each other constantly. Mm-hmm. And one of them usually gets his money from events. So because everything's shut down, the income isn't as, it's not as much. Whereas she has a more stable career. So one of the things that quarantine is doing for their relationship is it's forcing them to like connect more, communicate more. He's learning different ways to be masculine in the household. And I think that's a really strong relationship. I think quarantine is also forcing some couples to be like, really bickery. Like you're with them all the time. So it's like, it can be really tense if you don't like that person. So I think their relationship is getting stronger from my perspective. I don't know what you think, Dante.
Yeah, I mean, from what I saw, they did have an understanding of I mean, if each other, I know for he's a close friend of mine, so I've seen him through relationships, in and out of relationships. I mean, I feel like this is a little different. But you know, it is the understanding of he's dated a few Filipinos, so he kind of understands like a little bit. But it was yeah, I mean, they understand like financially, like where they stand, how they're gonna do that. That's pretty cool. That's kind of stuck out to me, how they are switching in different roles because he's in and out. But like, she didn't do it where it was offensive to his masculinity.
Right.
So she kind of said it in a way where it was, I mean, I don't know, maybe he did take it that way, but I feel like it wasn't like she put him on blast. Like, she was like, yo, like, he ain't making nothing. Like, you know, she didn't do that, but she did in a way where like, yeah, right now in these times it is difficult. But you know, we're switching off, rotating. So I mean, it's hard to talk about finance, especially with a man and if they're making. So it was
that's every man's insecurity is money. That's an insecurity, definitely.
Yeah, it is. We're not thinking it, man. No, what's the same term said? No money, no honey.
Man, shit hurts.
So I mean, it was good. I think it was really good. So if you guys ever want to tune on to the episode, it's right there. Yeah. All right. So moving on to this topic. All right. So we've talked about social classes, financially classes, but now we're talking about it's a word. What is it called? What is it again? Hypergamy. Okay. All right. So can we get like an actual definition, a correct definition that you guys know, so we can explain to listeners that are listening on what it is?
Hypergamy is the strategy that humans use in society to date above their social class. To put it in the lamest terms, that's what it is.
Okay.
Anyone want to add on to that?
I didn't know if you wanted us to or not. I just like, I can go with that. That's cool.
Okay. All right.
I mean, it's the same thing. There's an old term that it was more about marriage, and that was just, like she said, going for a higher social status. A man who's have more. Back in the day, it used to be going for men who had more money, who had more to gain in life, and so the woman could, adapt better and have a better chance for a better life and for her kids and stuff like that. So, but nowadays people use it during any and all type of relationships, just to upgrade, if you will. And I guess this whole podcast is, I guess, for us to discuss all about the upgrade, the intentions of it, good or bad. Is it natural? Is it something we should be doing, or something we can divert, something we could so on and so forth. But hopefully that'll add on to Ann Shirley.
Yeah. So just in general, just to add to that too, there's like a biological imperative, right? So there's this idea that women, because they get pregnant and they can't reproduce as fast as men, and it takes a lot of energy to get pregnant, birth a child, raise that child, that hypergamy is like our way of getting paid for that labor. So like if you have a wealthy man who can take care of you and your children, it's a biological necessity to gravitate to those types of men instead of men who can't take care of you and your children. Yeah. And on the opposite side, I think there's a biological imperative for men too. They want to be with women who are feminine, women who can nurture their children, women who have routines. And they choose women who generally have that versus women who can't. Because if the species is trying to reproduce, then that's the whole point, right? So just to add on to hypergamy, that's why we do it.
I did a little research into it, and it does delve deeper into it, more of a genetic and primal instinct type thing. It used to be women would go for, just like in nature, still to this day, men are the ones who are more beautiful out of the animals. They have to
Right.
be, just to get the female. And back in primal days, women would only go for the alpha male, which was the strongest and had the best genes and
Mhm.
had, he can pass on his genes and they'll have a stronger family and so on. He was the one who brought, killed the animals,
Right.
brought the food, provided for him and everything. And I think we've gotten a little away from that, and it's become a little bit superficial and more materialistic. And you see, women with men who are genetically not strong, but they're mentally strong and they have great jobs and they have money and they can provide for them financially, but they're not giving them the genetic strength that they used to back in our ancestral days, our
Mhm.
primal days. And I think, we should kind of get back to that, but it's kind of impossible to, because we live in society and we're civilized nowadays. We're not cavemen. But I do see that, and I've always had an issue with that. Women just going for, and I'm not saying all women, but some women would just go for men just for the financial support, especially nowadays when they too can go for that themselves and get that same money, and then that way they can go and they can look for a mate for more emotional and more physical and more spiritual needs, and that those things can last, because money, a man can lose a job, he can invest in something and lose all of that. And so I think money can only go so far, but I think women should really go back to more of the genetic thing and more of the biological thing, and look for a stronger genetic man, and hopefully that guy is going for a good job and financial support as well. But
Yeah. I wish we could too, but like we live in the Bay Area, and and the biggest industry here is tech, right? And so you see a lot of like tech bros who aren't like physically masculine, but they still walk in the world as very dominant men, like alpha like. They think like they think very alpha like. And I think I agree with you. We should, well, let me be careful here. I agree with you. I do think women do choose men more based off of social status and not like biology or what makes them feel like emotionally connected. But it's because if we're thinking biologically, if like that's the biological imperative, then it makes sense to choose a man who's like maybe you don't have strong feelings for, but your children's children will be secured. Because that's, in my opinion, marriage is about that. It's about securing your children's like provisions. It's not really about love. It's about passing on legacy. And so if you're going to pass on legacy and enter this contract like marriage, I think you should choose a man who can take care of you. And just the way things are right now in society, it's like it's not really based off of like emotional for men. It's about like how can you provide. Have you ever heard of the this thing where women can't go back materially and men can't go back sexually, like when they start dating people? Have you ever heard of that?
I've heard of that. Yeah,
Okay.
I've heard a version of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
They,
that's the same thing, right? Like,
well, they never go. I never heard about the money aspect. Just that, just the status part, or the social status part. They'll never go back if they reach a certain status. Like the guys, they used to be dating sixes or whatever, and then they find this guy's a 9 and he's great in all aspects. They're not going to go below that 9. They're always going to continue to either find something just as good or better than that dude, and vice versa. If a guy starts dating a beautiful girl and he's always been with ragamuffins his whole life, and then he's got this one beautiful girl, if that breaks up, he's gonna go for something just as good or better. It's just the best. We all want better for ourselves. And
yeah.
a friend of mine told me that. I asked her just today. I asked for her advice and stuff, or not advice, just her suggestions or her opinions on it. And she said hypergamy to her was good only if it benefited the two partners. Like if their intentions were great on it. Like if it was for a guy and his girlfriend wasn't giving him something physical, she wasn't giving him attention, she wasn't keeping herself up, she wasn't taking care of herself, then obviously he should look to upgrade. And for the girls thing, if the guy wasn't getting a job, he was laying on his ass all the time, he was mentally, either physically or emotionally abusing her, and he just wasn't shit, then yes, she should definitely start to upgrade. And it should be a way of doing it. You shouldn't just drop the person. You should always try to figure it out, you know, and work it through it just so you can become a stronger person through that. But if it just doesn't work and you're just not compatible with that person, then you should definitely upgrade. So I'll give her a shout out for that. Sprite, I'll give you a shout out for that. That's her nickname. So
that's beautiful. I agree. But I would ask then, like, how about when we're dating? Let's say I don't have a partner. Most of my most frustrating relationships with men have been with men who are who are less than me in social status. And what I mean by that is like they haven't finished school, they don't have cars, they're working a job, and it's just like it's just something to come by. Whereas I'm not in that position, and I don't plan on being in this position in the next 5 years. So like oftentimes when, because I've heard you say like women naturally gravitate to dating men who are like alpha males, like men who have a lot of social status. I find that that's true to some degree, but the men are generally more frustrated if the woman's of higher social status than him.
And he's not alpha then. Alpha doesn't care if the woman is at a higher social status or not. He doesn't care about that shit. He's more concerned about himself and where he's at his higher social status. And it doesn't necessarily mean if he's popular in social media or not. It's if he's confident, if he can walk in a room and he can control it if he needs to be, if he can go into a job and he can talk to his boss on the same level without being intimidated, you know, these types of things. You know, he takes life full head. He doesn't really give a shit, you know, what people think, as long as he doesn't get anybody's way, shit like that. You know, it's like I was reading on the Stoic Man, and the generation nowadays has it kind of wrong. You know, they've always thought, well, not always, but they've recently been thinking Stoic men are unemotional men. And when I was reading the origins from Stoicism, actually involved men and women, and it was actually being comfortable and being confident in your emotions and actually being able to tell those things and not giving two shits about what people think. You know, it's just it's actually having true control and power over yourself and being comfortable in your own skin. That, to me, that's what an alpha is. And women do gravitate towards that. You know, you can be an alpha and work at McDonald's, and you can pull chicks left and right. You know, it doesn't matter. You know, it's who you are as a person, and they see that. And you know, on top of that, if you have good genes, you know, you're healthy, your family's somewhat healthy. You know, I mean, everybody has issues and stuff, but you're healthy. You're working towards something, and that's all a woman needs, man. That's all she truly needs. I've heard that from every woman I've dated and all my female friends as well. It's like that's all they need. Even my friends with benefits said the same thing. That's the one thing they like about me, is because I'm constantly moving and I'm never the same as I was last year. So it's like, even though I'm not famous now or I'm not fully financially successful, I will get there, and they can see that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of men, if they continue to do that, just like I was talking, when we were talking in our group talk, if a lot of men just continue to do that and work on themselves and continue just focusing on themselves, not pushing the girl out, not keeping her closed out of anything, but just continue that shit, she'll find that attractive. You know, he's working this shit out. He's still going. He's still, you know, that strong man. He's still working his ass off. He's still making sure he's good, making sure he's healthy. He's making sure everything. He's doing all these things for himself first, but also to be there for her as well. Because no woman wants a weak dude, right? You don't want a dude who can just fold at any hard problems, you know?
On a simp, right?
Want that. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
We don't want no simps out here. Was that one song? I don't want to scrub. Was that?
Yeah,
TLC.
Exactly. Yeah, TLC.
Like, right.
You really just quoted a TLC quote, man.
Yeah.
You really just quoted one, huh?
It was relevant.
Okay. You know,
Right.
I don't want no scrub. Scrub ain't getting no love from me. Ain't how the passengers, right? The best friends, right? Oh man, but I
think one of the.
Go ahead.
All right, I'm just gonna add in real quick about the whole hypergamy thing, right? So, for me, I think it's really hard to talk and think about hypergamy once you start moving away from educational status and financial status and social status, right? I think when you start talking about like just generally just kind of like perceived value, right? But not in a financial, educational, or social sense. Like, it's really, really tough to call it hypergamy, right? Because I think at that point, it's more so a reflection on you. Like, if your girl leaves you for someone who's not like on paper better than you in any of those three formats, it's like really tough to call it hypergamy. And then I still have a hard time looking at hypergamy literally just outside of the like financial sense, especially once you get over, like, once you get out of like the high school age, right? The high school age, yeah, if you're a little bit nerdy, your girl might leave you for a job, right? But once you start actually becoming like an adult over the age of 25, like, did you go to school? Did you get a degree? Do you have a job? Do you have like the house, the car, right? All these things. Or are you suffering from, and this sounds really bad, but it's called, you know, the motherhood penalty. Like, are you suffering from that? Like, where do you sit in the social rankings? It's kind of hard for me to even consider hypergamy without, especially education and financial, right?
Yeah.
And so actually I was looking at some studies just because it was like, all right, like I have my own anecdotal evidence. I have things that I've read in books that could or could not be called like pop science, right? So I was like, I need something like for real, like something that's like going to give me some insight into hypergamy. And so I found this study, and it was, well, also one of my criteria was the person who did the study has to be a woman, she has to be American. Those are like my things. She has to be a woman and she has to be American, right? And this is on the, I'm gonna call it the brighter side of hypergamy. There is a darker side of hypergamy, which no one's mentioned yet, and it's women leaving men for higher status and higher value men, with nothing inherently being wrong with the ones they have, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get to that eventually when we get down to simping, but it's on the brighter side. So they did, it was the, so God, I'm about to butcher her name, right? I think it was Yoon Shin, right? She was Chinese American. She did a study based on the census, right? And what she did was basically she looked at educational levels and then looked at income disparities, right? She felt like that was the fairest way to tell if there's hypergamy, because like when you look at it, this super broad spectrum, it's really hard to nail it down and call it hypergamy. So for her, she was like, we're going to focus on educational and financial, right? Because before, when education wasn't readily available to women and the workplace wasn't readily available to women, right? Actually, not too long ago, it was like that. Like, that was true hypergamy.
Yeah,
right? Like,
1950.
you owned a farm, but this guy was a banker on Wall Street. She can't work or go to school, and she has to pick between you two. You know what I mean? Right. So since it got harder because women are in the workforce, actually women now outnumber men in terms of, she called it non-farm labor, right? And then we've all heard about like how women are going to school in greater amounts than men. So when you look at educational levels of couples where the man has a much higher education level than the woman, he is on average and trending the top earner, right? When you look at couples where they have equal or very, very near similar education levels, there's a greater number that have an equal income, right? But still trending, men are higher earners. But what got really interesting for me was when you looked at women who had a much higher educational level than the men they were with, right? On average, so I believe of those couples, I think 28%, which is 28% women earn more than men. But what they found was just women at that, I'm sorry, when you're like a PhD or you have your doctorates, right, or you're a lawyer, like it's really hard to find other men with that same educational level because they're typically already married because of the age you get these accolades, right? They cared much, much less about like the educational level of their men, but it's still trended towards their men and higher income levels.
Interesting.
And that to me, I was like, so maybe we can't say across the board hypergamy isn't real, but financial hypergamy, totally a real thing. And then I was like, okay, so I branched outside of the US just a little bit, right? So it was a study done by, was it the Oxford University and Stockholm University. They did a very, very similar study and they found the same exact things, right? But what they did find was the disparities, like the numbers of percent of women who were earning much more than the men they were with was way more common in younger couples. Which
that doesn't make sense, especially nowadays. People are obsessed with material possessions and
especially in the
looking
States.
good on Instagram and stuff. So
Yeah, especially in the States. I know in some cultures, I know that Kylie posted something about that. Some cultures like India and China, it's considered a practice by women. Families will want their daughters to marry up. I mean,
Well, I was told that India's kind of like changed. They've been progressive in the last 5 to 6 years.
yeah,
So they've released a lot of the oppression they have on women. So
yeah,
China is oof, but I think any arranged marriage is a form of hypergamy in the family, just because
yeah.
they usually want to marry their daughter off to a wealthy family or a better off family. So, and they still do that in the Middle Eastern countries and stuff. So it's
Someone commented and
But
said,
also,
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, as women earn more education and earn more money, it becomes harder to find a man who's of higher status than you and who's willing to be with you. Like your dating pool shrinks. Whereas with men, as they grow more in social status, their dating preference expand. So like if we were to look at it on a triangle, maybe the top 10% of men get like a large pick of women, versus if the top 10% of women, it's just if the top 10% of men are able to have access to all types of women, and the top 10% of women can only access men who are of higher status than them, their dating pool shrinks. So they generally tend towards dating men who are of less social status than them, or at least financially in an education.
usually doesn't work out because the men don't like the woman to make more money.
Right. And so that's awkward, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of
I wouldn't
pressure.
be so quick to say usually education and finances, because they did what the study was based off from 1980 to 2012 American Census. It's still women want, as women are accepting the fact that men cannot always match them on an educational level, they're still striving for men of a higher financial level.
Right.
As proven by when there's a big disparity between educational levels, women are still always trying to ensure that guy's getting paid. He got paid for it.
And men with a lot of money tend to go for women who don't have money, just because that's a more secure way of keeping their woman if they don't have anything else to offer.
Or I think
So
men don't care about a woman's social status. They care about like how feminine she is. Femininity is like, it's like currency.
Right.
Well, you
So
can still be a woman who makes a lot more money and still be feminine. It's just about the power control.
have you
Like
seen
usually women who have a lot of money, like I've had friends who dated lawyers and doctors who make a lot of money. They want more power over the relationship, and if they do make more money, they will use that over the guy's head. So
Right.
usually the guy will go for a girl who makes less money just because he has that form of power over her. I'm just saying, if he doesn't have anything else to offer, just like I was saying, who alpha truly is. You know, alpha doesn't have to make money, so he can still keep a girl without having that financial security, as long as he has other things that, you know, she's desiring and need.
So I'm gonna throw some stats to y'all, some stats to y'all asses. All right. So it was on Reddit. So this is Reddit.
Reddit's the
Okay.
shit.
Reddit is the shit. So they got this study from, because you guys are saying studies, but you guys aren't giving us any references. I'm giving you guys references here. It's based off of OkCupid. It's off OkCupid.
I know, right?
You're better off.
No. I clicked. No, I went on the website and went to another link. And I did my shit. Right?
So you pick the first search result on Google, right?
Okay. So
I go to Bing.com to get all my information.
That's right.
Are y'all let me say the stats or what?
I just asked my 4-year-old, hey man, what do you think?
All right. So are we gonna just go on with that? All right. So
I call up Malcolm all the time and ask him.
Stupid.
No, go ahead.
All right. So they claim the result of hypergamous nature, 80% of women will seek sex with 20% of men. So 20% of men will end up having sex with 80% of the female population. Or 20% of the men will have 80% of the sex. Females will generally share an alpha or wait for the alpha, then settle with the beta. So this is
absolutely
2019.
Yeah, I quoted this like 12 episodes ago, man.
Hey, man.
I remember I mentioned that.
Yeah.
You did.
All right, but it's relevant, right? Like if you're on
super relevant.
Like
so I mean, we can have this discussion about it, saying, "Oh yeah, this is how it." But like, honestly, this is like factual shit. I mean, this is really like it's not like something we. Oh well, there's other ways. It's like okay, there's that like 80%, and there's a 20%. That's like okay. I mean, I personally have talked to women who were making a lot of money, more than I was, and they did have an ideal of having this type of situation was where I was in the way of getting to where they want to go. Like it was if they want to travel and live their life because they're used to being single for the rest of their time. So for them to find someone that's like them, they're trying to find someone that's like them. And then they complain about someone who's like them, who's a fuckboy. So it was just like, okay, so you're kind of like, you mean? And it does kind of like hit you hard because like you're thinking about like, okay, well, I don't do those things. But I don't know if that makes any resonate with any of you guys. But for me, that's what I've noticed. And it's based off my experience of it. Yeah. But they're seeking out people like who are women who are massively successful. I generally don't give a shit. But that they see that as like, oh, he probably gonna attack me or he wants me for the money or whatever the case may be. I know we don't care. I want to make my own money anyway. So that's just how I be. That's how I am. I'm sure that's how most fellas on here are like. But that's
most of the time, women who make a lot of money, they're intelligent and they're smart, and if they know that the dude they're with, if he doesn't make that much money, they know that he's like striving for something, and then that's all they need. It's if you're actually doing that shit, you're not just sitting on the couch and like, yeah, one day I'm gonna do this, baby. I got all these dreams. You're not doing shit every day, then yeah, of course she's gonna be like, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
I could have dated somebody in the same office that I work at, or somebody a couple of floors above me. Yeah. But there's a reason why she started dating that dude in the first place. So it has to be something.
True. That's facts.
I kind of belong to the camp of like for me, it's like if you're alpha, like one of the most alpha traits you can have in America is to be financially literate. Like information is free. So the most alpha thing, I think we'll all agree here, the most alpha thing is self-reliance. Like nothing is more alpha than taking care of yourself. Nothing. Nothing is worth, right? You are emotionally independent. You are hopefully working towards financial independence, right? You are outcome independent. Like what matters is, did you do what you intended to do, right? Like, your effort outweighs the outcome. And so when you're like that, right, I think women are like, well, you're alpha enough where they'll date you if you're making less than them. But if you don't have that sharp financial literacy, because it could just be like a lifestyle thing, right? Let's say you have an incredible lifestyle because you have no debt and you don't really have a lot of bills, and you're only making like 50 grand a year, right? And then she's making like 100 grand, but she has like student loans, she has this, that, and the other. So it's not so much about like who really brings in the most. It's like, I think who's better with their money also matters in the situation, because we all know people who make close to 6 figures and we're like, how are you still paycheck to paycheck, dude?
Yeah.
Like some of us work in retail and we're making it happen.
Like I'll tell you, my homie that makes 200 grand and he's got like 4 kids and a mortgage and 3 cars. And he's always worried about money all the time. But I remember getting girls that they just thought it was crazy and awesome that I moved out here from Kansas by myself. Drove 24 hours by myself, moved out here, struggled, got everything, went through 4 years of school, everything by myself. Just that alone would give me that key to get in. Again, I don't know how much I can express it. It's just as long as guys are, striving for something, trying to make something of themselves. Like Red Pill said, as long as you're going towards that financial success, that financial freedom, then that's all you can ask for.
I agree.
I agree. That is what makes a man attractive, is if he's trying to gain higher in social status, right? And all the qualities and skills of a man that requires, being self-reliant, being very self-focused and linear thinking. These are all things that we would like umbrella under masculinity, and this is what women like. Women like masculine men, and what makes them attractive is like trying to gain higher in that social status. What's unattractive, however, is the opposite of that, where they aren't trying to gain more. They're dependent on their woman partner to kind of hold the social status for the family. And there's no like there's no real effort. And I think that's where conflict happens, no matter where she is on that social scale herself. If the man isn't striving for something, then he's not really seen as a man.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Why are we all agreeing?
I don't know. We're supposed to all like argue and debate. What's going on? Okay, I'll move on to questions that you guys supposed to say here. We already talked about our thoughts on hypergamy. What are the benefits? We already talked about that. What are some of the cons dating hypergamy, and what are the benefits? Did we already kind of talk about that?
I have something to add with that, though. Cons and like benefits and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I think the only benefit hypergamy has to men is incentive, right? Because when you look at hypergamy, and my definition is social status, right? Like, if you're starting to use like biological imperatives here, men look at women for fertility.
Right.
Fertility, and I would even throw in willingness for intimacy and companionship, right? Because I wanted to know, like, one of the questions we might touch on was like, who's more hypergamous, men or women, right? When you look at hypergamous from social status, I was like, okay, well, I went into Google and I typed in, what do men want? Like, and then there's like, I autofilled to what women want in a woman. And I went to the first 20 articles that I saw, and not once did I see anything to do with finances or social status.
Right.
Almost everything was companionship, willingness for intimacy, and emotional discipline. It's like the three things every man wants in a woman.
Femininity.
Right. So, God, I was going to make a point here. Oh, benefits, right? I think women have so much more to gain on hypergamy. Like I said, the only benefit hypergamy really presents to men is incentive to do better. Like, other than that, it's not really something that men typically do.
But again, if we go back to biological imperatives, if the man's biological imperative is to have as many seeds as possible, as many strong offspring as possible, then it makes you can't base it off of, like you said, social status. We base it off of fertility. Now, if the children, that means if we can accept that, then we must understand then that a man's imperative to have as many strong, like his bloodline secure, is how he, again, validates his masculinity. So it's more than just like, I don't think it's unfair to men. I think men are constantly searching for the next best, attractive, more feminine woman, even if they're in a relationship, because that's their biological imperative. Whereas with women, their biological imperative is to take care of children, raise children, and make sure that those children are nurtured.
Right.
So again, that's why or at least if we're talking about masculinity, and if you're saying how
talking about hypergamy.
Or hypergamy, and we're saying how like it doesn't really it really doesn't benefit men, it's not actually true, because like it's their biological need to find feminine women who can produce strong offspring.
But that's not hypergamy.
Well, you weren't talking about hypergamy. You were talking about
why hypergamy doesn't benefit men. The only benefit is incentive. Because men aren't looking for social status in a partner. That's why hypergamy doesn't really exist for men. Now, personally, I could say I do like social status in a woman. I do look at a woman's educational levels, family background. So I guess in a way I can say personally I'm a little bit hypergamous. That matters to me, right? I want to date someone who's intellectual, has financial literacy, those are points for me. But that's not something generally men want. Hypergamy, in the definition of social practice of choosing a partner above your social status, that's not.
No, we agree.
Femininity, fertility, those are things we look at, not social status. So it's not hypergamy.
Oh, yeah, the word is, I'm sorry, let me stand corrected. It's actually hypogamy, which is where you don't look at social status, you look at other things. So if like for women.
We're talking about hypergamy though.
Right. But I'm talking about men in this regard, right? We are agreeing that they're both not hypergamous, they're not looking at social status, but they're
Right.
looking at women's femininity. They're looking at who can produce, like, I'm just mirroring what you're saying, is what I'm saying. And I'm standing corrected. Men aren't hypergamous. They do not care about women's social status, but they do care about who is more feminine for biological reasons.
Right. Which probably has like another name for it. But when you look at hypergamy for social status, the only benefit it presents to men is incentive to do better.
Or, and when you say do better, are you talking about like being more masculine?
Be more masculine, be more financially fit, be more physically fit, be more emotionally fit.
But it plays back into his own survival, right? Like if you just let's take peacocks, for example. The male peacock is beautiful, right? And the male peacock who has the most like extravagant dance is the alpha. He's the one who gets to mate with all the hens.
Right.
So if women are choosing men who are alpha, who are of higher social status, and it's a man's biological imperative to mate, then hypergamy isn't just beyond incentive. It's not just incentive to be like a man. It's his biological need, because if he isn't alpha, then he won't reproduce.
Exactly.
And so what's the point of it?
The benefit to men is to be better, to be more fit.
Well, I would just go further to say it's like first it's the survival of his.
Right. Because if he didn't have to be more fit or be the best dancing bird, right? Then it's like, if he could just get any girl he wanted just because he wanted that girl, then like, hypergamy wouldn't even be a thing. But because it is a thing, we agree. We basically just said yes to the same thing, that the benefit of hypergamy to men is for men to be better men and to be more dateable partners, right?
Yeah. And for women, it's for support and security.
For your own survival, be the best dancing bird. That's the benefit of hypergamy to men.
Right. The question is people doing that now? Are they doing it with the biological imperative? Or are they just doing it for social superficial status?
I think for the most part, the biological imperative part is really subconscious, right? I know for me, when I see a woman with lots of curves, I'm not thinking, oh, she's gonna give me great babies. I know my subconscious, my reptile brain is thinking that, right? Our little cerebellum in the back is like literally just taking the visual outline. And it's like, oh, great babies. But for me, I'm not thinking that. My like prefrontal cortex, it's not happening there. It's like, oh, she's hot. I don't know why she's hot. She looks great, so she's hot.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's the same. We are biological animals, but like we're also human beings, and so we use different things to kind of promote that social status. And for men, that can be having a really nice car, or being really athletically built, or being, as a woman, like you show that you're a strong feminine. You can reproduce biologically by like being super curvy, and having like really feminine features, for example. So
then I would think my own person is that we're not really doing a justice towards evolving, because to evolve is to weed out the weakest. So if we're not going for genetic superiority, we're not looking for genetic superiority in our partners, then we're just looking for superficial things that can be gone in a gust of wind, like money or cars or social status or anything like that. Then we're not really going for strong genetic codes. We're not going to further our children to have stronger offspring anymore. So that will leave us to what we are dealing with now. We have more ignorant, narcissistic people than we ever have. We have people who can't handle situations. We have people who rather ignore things or avoid things than actually live up to them or admit to them, or whatever. It's just we've become weaker as a species, mentally and in probably not physically, but mentally and emotionally we have, and it's because we're not going for the same things anymore. We're not striving to better ourselves as far as in a relationship. People tend to get in relationships, and I'll go off of what Red Pill said. I think men do, it's incentive to work better, and it's after the girl has left them for hypergamy. After they've seen that she's left them for this guy who has all this money and stuff like that, they're like, shit. And then so the best thing they can do, they can't get money overnight. So all they can do is lose this weight, work out, work on their mind, make their shit sharp and keen again, like I was saying in our
Chat.
our group chat. It's like that's what I meant. It's like men should always maintain that sharp keenness. They should always take care of themselves and always be the best they can be, no matter in a relationship or not. It's not 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And that was my fault because this is the wording I was saying in that group chat, but it's never 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It's just keeping your mind sharp, being the best you can be, because that will go, it's osmosis. It would go throughout your genes, and it would pass on to your children, the way you teach your children, the way you raise them, stuff that's worse, and you'll create this stronger child. That's the whole thing of offspring. Your offspring is always going to be a percentage stronger than that of their parent. That's just how evolution works. But we've slowed down because we're not going for the stronger genetics. We're going for this dude who has a car and he has money and stuff. Now he may be able to support you, and he may have a great financial job, and he may know a lot of people, and he may be able to get the best medicines and all that type of stuff. But who knows? He might have a long history of anemia or kidney disease or something of that nature.
Yeah.
But you gave him up because you can get a car, you can get whatever you want financially, but you gave up the guy who had great genes, who was working for something but didn't really have all that stuff. I think that's when it becomes a real problem, But
I can see where it's problematic, because here in the Bay Area specifically, there's a high rate of children who are autistic. Now, autism is something that is genetically inherited. But if you look also, like in the Bay Area, there's a strong emphasis on technology. And autistic minds generally geared towards science and engineering and all the STEM careers, because the way the autistic mind sees things, it's just as phenomenal in that environment. And so if there's like in the Bay Area, like a large emphasis on technology, and you're noticing a trend of more autistic children being born, I think we could also say, like, biologically speaking, they're still tending towards what's fit for that environment. Maybe in an
there's no doubt that we're continuing to evolve, but what the graph I saw, that like the last hundreds of years, I forgot how it was, like 400 years we've been on this plateau. 200 years we've been on this kind of plateau. Like technology wise, mentally wise, we're getting smarter and stuff like that, because we are evolving technology wise, but we're lacking in so much more that it's ultimately not going to help us out in the end. We're going to have all this vast technology. What's up?
So much more what? Because I think Anne Shirley had the perfect point. I mean, if you look at crocodiles, they haven't changed in millions of years because it works for them.
But they've been alive a lot longer than we have too.
Yeah, and it just works for them, right? So they've been the same for a very long time because it works for them.
Yeah.
So I think look at the graph and be like, oh, we haven't changed in 200 years. Well, have we had to?
Right.
Because in areas where like
it takes a lot longer, but
huge,
it takes a lot longer to evolve than 200 years. But what I'm talking about is as far as the social and the mind, how it works towards marriage. And I'm just going back to hypergamy. I'm trying to throw that into hypergamy. We can talk about evolving as far as the human and everything later, but I'm just trying to throw that in as far as the hypergamy goes. When we used to date and we used to go out and look for higher genetic. Even in the 40s and 50s, people would go for a more handsome man, he's stronger, stuff like that. We've gotten kind of away from let's sell our daughter like she's cattle because we can bring the family together. But it's just, I don't know about you, but I've seen it in the last like decade. You got these gorgeous, genetically beautiful women that look, like they're genetically beautiful, and then they have these ogres, that are halfway alive, they're diabetic nightmares, and they're just like, like what the hell is going on? It's like, I mean, he might make you laugh and everything, but then you see their kids, and their kids are overweight already, and it's like, what the hell are you doing?
But does that have to do with the genetic material passed down or poor health values in the family?
Probably both. Shit,
one of the things you
both,
can even say, one of the things you can even say is like, okay, this guy has a nice car, he has a lot of money, he has access to great health care.
Right. Well, I was saying that,
my end of life will be much better, right? So maybe this guy does have anemia, right? And my kids might have anemia, but he also has a $3 million trust fund for our potential kids. So whatever anemic problems they have will be taken care of by Kaiser.
So it's okay if you have a generation after generation of anemia, as long as they're wealthy.
Okay, and then
see, this is why this is how we have the inbred royal family. You know, because they thought that was okay to keep having sex with their family members as long as they're rich. So, you know.
Well, also what I'm saying too is like, it really is in a way kind of like the survival of the fittest thing. I get what you're saying, right? Like the biggest, let's say, like out deer, right? Like the biggest buck may not be the smartest buck, right? But he's the one who's gonna smash, right? But I think when you look at society that has a sense of self, and while we have many very overarching values, you have some others that are a little bit different. That's when I said like hypergamy is really hard to nail down. Like it's really hard to get down to one thing, which is why I think personally it should really just be proven social status, financial, and educational. I think beyond that, it's really hard to call it hypergamy. It's hard to like make it palpable, right? Yeah. So what I was trying to think was just like, in terms of hypergamy, I mean, I think there is still some sense of like going for genetics because the top 20% of men are still banging the other 80% of women. So it's like, I don't think they're just the top 20% because there is a Ferrari in their profile photo. Because when a girl meets this dude, she's gonna know, like, okay, like you're an idiot, right? Like you are a real idiot, or you're incredibly arrogant, you're incredibly stupid. And now that you have the rise of women who are financially literate and in the workforce and have school education, they're seeing past idiots more and more.
You know, I will add that they have said in medical studies that women right before their menstrual cycle, they go for attractive, stronger genetic men. Right. And then afterwards, they look for men who are more secure and more financially supported.
That has to do with the feminine solipsism, right? Like it's like this dichotomy of what a woman wants. A woman wants a good father figure and good genetic material, and it's very rarely the same person.
Yeah, nowadays, especially, yeah.
So it's really hard for her to find someone who would be a good dad versus who would be great genetic material. Because the guy with great genetic material is just, he's not hanging around. He's just banging a bunch of chicks.
So biological imperative.
Right. So
I'm going to continue on with the questions too. I know we're kind of getting a little bit over on this one, but I'm going to get to the questions because there's a couple things I do want to talk about. And one of them is, we already know it's real. Let's see. How about like, in a way, can we talk about an end game result? Like, how do we work around hypergamy? Because I know that
need to be better. That's it.
Just men.
They need to work hard. Like, there's not. You can't ask a woman to not be hypergamous, right? Because it's like you're telling her settle for less. That doesn't make sense for her. Right. Like, why would she do that?
Right.
Yeah.
You're like, look, you could have this guy who's really, really healthy and has a lot of money, but because we don't like hypergamy, go date this scrub. Like, that doesn't make any sense to her. No. Why would she do that? And as a man, like, I think men are really blessed in the fact that women judge us almost solely on things we can control, except for height.
Yeah, right.
Except for height, we can control anything a woman's going to judge us on. And I think in a way that should make men feel really, really good. Because, like, look, man, if you're like 5'4", yeah, like, I'm sorry, but you can still become a millionaire.
Yep.
You can still become extremely strong in the mind. You can still be really, really fit, right? Have you seen those wrestlers? Have you seen like wrestlers in lower weight classes? Or have you seen the flyweight MMA guys or in powerlifting weight classes and stuff?
Yeah, they throw up a lot, like 3 times their weight.
Right.
Yeah,
so it's like,
crazy.
I feel bad for women because like if you get stuck with like bad bone structure, like your only options are surgery.
Right.
And that doesn't appeal to everybody.
So true. It'll still get passed on to the next generation, though. You know,
right?
Nothing you can do about that.
I mean, sorry to interrupt you, but you see it like with women, right? Or with women like Kylie Jenner, for example, right? Biologically, not the most feminine, but through surgery, she's been able to become a bombshell. And that, even though she's a billionaire, she presents in a very hyper feminine way, and she's been able to attract like masculine men. It's not a coincidence that family is attracted to mostly Black men. Black men are considered like the top of the masculine scale. So
they're not wrong.
Facts. Sorry.
What do you two think? What do you two think?
I mean, I think it's facts.
They're not wrong. That's facts.
Of course, Dante thinks it's facts.
Yeah. Shout outs to that, man. Shout outs to the brothers out there, man. Just
hell yeah, I'm only part Black. That's the part that gives me the most.
going through it, man. It's troubling times, man. But I see people going through this and killing it. So
hey, hold on real quick. I'm super sorry. Everyone make a smile. I'm gonna take a screenshot. I just realized we got only black people here, and I'm kind of. I'm gonna take a screenshot real quick.
Well, the live stream's over anyway. I gotta open up again.
Right.
So we got time.
Oh.
Right. Okay. There we go. All right. Just do that real quick. I just realized.
We need to post that somewhere.
We were cracking jokes. I was like, hold on, we got only brothers and sisters in here. So going real quick. We're going real quick. All right.
Hey, put them on, man.
Yeah, I saw this. Oh, maybe I shouldn't say it. But
well,
where it was like, is it summer if white folk ain't comparing their skin to you yet?
So, hey. So the live stream did end.
Okay.
You guys want to jump back on with the live stream and go back with the questions?
Yeah.
Hello? Are you going crazy from being at home? Are you getting sick of seeing the same TikTok dances over and over? I'm a savage. Do you need something to keep yourself or your kids active during these important times? Well, right now, I'm doing a weekly beginner breaking class every Tuesday from 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We start off by learning the basics of breaking and then expand our knowledge of the dance and dig deeper each week. No experience is necessary, and if you miss a class, you can rewatch it at any time. Go to patreon.com/VinsanTV and sign up for my weekly beginner breaking class. Give yourself a break, literally.
All right, guys. So we're going to start it off with simping. Simping? Simping? Is that what? Simping? Okay, simping. Okay. Got it. I got it.
S-I-M-P-I-N-G, simping.
Okay. So can you guys give a quick definition, a true definition of this? And the question I want to ask you guys is, how does simp influence hypergamy? Does submission to women's desires make you less or more successful in dating, or vice versa? So yeah, we'll get the definition and ask that question. So whichever you guys have confidence in that, we'll start it off. So what's the true definition?
So the best definition of simping I was able to find, right? And I'm going to make it gender neutral because I think this can apply to both genders, right? When you infatuate over a person, allowing them to take over your mind and cause you to do things for them you wouldn't normally do at your own detriment.
Sorry. Yeah, that's a great definition. Women, I think the word for women is like being codependent, and it's so disgusting. Like, she's, you see women who like will give up everything, their entire identity, in order to be like almost like a slave to a man. And it's I in my opinion, I don't think you can like earn a man's respect that way by like being whatever he wants. Like, you have no identity. And it's so gross. Like, she can't do anything without him. It's like, it's basically asking to be a child and asking your partner to be your father or like your master. And I just
said master.
I just can't get with that. I mean in a relationship, like, not in other ways.
I agree.
So I'm going to paint a quick scenario, and as soon as I say this, like, hopefully everyone who listens to this recording and everyone watching the live stream is going to be like, oh yeah. So I think the ultimate female simp, right? This is like the most classic case of female simpitude. Made that up. Female simpitude I've ever heard is when a woman is like fiending over a guy who's in a relationship, right? So she is the side chick. She's allowing this dude to do her dirty. He's not calling her. He's not texting her. They're not going out in public. He's just raw dogging her in the back of his Dodge Charger, right? Like, that's...
That's the Charger!
He said Charger.
Right? Like, that's the ultimate female simp. So if you are a side chick and you're listening to this,
you are a simp.
Get raw dog to the back of a Charger, and he's not calling you afterwards. You know he's in a relationship. You are a simp.
Okay, question.
Yeah.
Is she's okay? So I agree with you, but based off of like the hypergamy thing, if only 20% of like attractive, strong men get to choose like out of all women, then and if his biological imperative is to be with as many women as possible, I think there's a difference between side chicks if she's like gaining something from it.
Well, like, I mean, if she's like waiting for him to call and she's like doing self-deprecating things, and I mean,
right? Yeah.
There's a point
about it.
I mean, it's kind of like, look, he's not really respecting you, right? If he's only calling you at like 10:30 at night earliest, he's not respecting you.
Like, what is she gaining? She's not gaining anything except for that moment of time that he gives her.
Right. I hate it. It's just his attention, like that like the fact that he can spend 5 seconds, 10, I don't know, an hour with him, and then that's it.
Right. And like I said, you're at an emotional detriment to this person, right? Because like over infatuation, and I'm not going to include people who are like in domestic violence situations, people who are like being like truly gaslighted, right?
Yeah.
Like, emotional abuse, because it's like she's in a position to walk away. You know what I mean? Like she really is. Like in other situations, it's less black and white, but in this one, it's not, right? She wants to work from this dude who's not going to give her more, he's only going to use it for sex. And she's going to cry to her girlfriends every single time he doesn't answer her texts, or he ghosts for like a week at a time. She's a simp. She's simp.
Oh, it's true. You can say it.
I know right now, everyone listening is like, I know like 3 people like.
I know, yep.
Well, hopefully they're not saying like, shit, I'm that girl.
Oh my
God. I hope they are. I hope they're like, oh shit, like, am I the simp? Like, they need this paradigm, like, rip that Band-Aid off. Like, you're simping, he's playing you. Like, come on.
Okay. So how does it influence hypergamy?
Alpha's fuck, beta buck. Straight up. Like, if you're a fucking simp beta, you're not getting pwned. That's literally
it up.
That's all it is. I know it sounded really bad, but it's like, that's a fact. If you're a simp dude who is emotionally dependent on his woman, that is one of the least alpha traits you could possibly have. That's one of the least desirable traits a woman would ever want in a man. Someone who's emotionally dependent, hypersensitive, and just not emotionally intelligent. Like, and
like
those are all the main traits of being a simp.
What they say, alphas fuck,
betas
clean it up.
Oh shit!
I never heard that before. That's new to me. Yeah. Okay. All right. I mean,
wait. From the woman's perspective, if you're a simp, you're doing hypergamy completely wrong. Because then
absolutely,
you're not seeking to better yourself to be more attractive to like high caliber men, and you're also not like you're just choosing whoever will come. And go ahead.
So is that like basketball wives, like on all that stuff, like those kind of wives, those trophy wives? Is that the same thing as simping with not intentional with hypergamy? Because you know the ones who just specifically go for to be a trophy wife.
Yeah.
I think even they have stages.
Here's what hypergamy, right?
Yeah, I think even those women have like
that's like ultimate hypergamy right there.
Yeah, I'm talking about women who will just accept a man just because he's a man and he's giving me attention. Like you're not. There's no benefit. You're not pushing your biological imperative to be with like the best male. You're just accepting whoever, and then you're losing a lot of resources. Like in the
it's kind of like a psychological issue. Then she's just looking for a man. I mean, she's lost something or had a lack of their father in her past, so she's trying to find that thing. I'm gonna segue. It's kind of funny. I never liked when girls say "daddy" during sex. That shit just throws me off, man.
What really?
I might be that one dude because it's like it's just the wrong, just the wrong title to call me in that situation. Because I mean, if I flipped it, I can't call her mommy. You know what I'm saying? It's not gonna work that way.
You can. You just gotta say Spanish.
Exactly. I can say mommy.
It's weird.
Yeah, but it's still kind of weird, man. I don't know. It's just me. Goodness. I just never liked that. I was just like, no.
But aren't you part Puerto Rican? You can pull it off.
I could, but it's like, I'm not There's so many other nicknames I can call. She can call me the other. But yeah, every time and every girl, they always say, just like, don't say that. Don't say that. It's okay. It's all good. But I would think, going back to that, I think that's why it's a psychological problem. She probably needs therapy if she's just going for attention. I don't think that have to do anything with hypergamy at all. It's just she's just looking for attention.
You're doing hypergamy wrong. And I think it's, again, a lot of women who get caught up in those situations, it's because they don't know their value as like feminine women. And so because they don't know what their value is, it's really easy to get addicted or trapped in these situations. And then like, you don't really take accountability for it. Like you'll make so many, you'll take, oh, I'm thinking of certain people, so that's why I'm getting upset. But like,
you feel very strongly about this. You feel very strongly.
Are they listening?
I don't know, but
They should.
They should. It's just very frustrating because I think for men they can get away with it, but for women it's like a double-edged sword because you're giving up, like you're losing your emotional, you're losing your physical. It's just it's a way to like get all types of used. And then like if we talk about bad boys, right? Like female simps love bad boys. Because like
they do.
they create this kind of like, or bad boys create this kind of like up and down where they like you, they may not like you, and female simps just like are ready to jump to kind of like gain his attention or gain some type of validation from him. And like it's just a toxic mix, and it's from an own woman's not a woman not valuing her own femininity. So she's doing hypergamy completely wrong. She's choosing men who aren't going to be there. Like, it's bad.
I'd say a big percentage of women don't know their worth. So they're probably a big percentage of women who are simps just because I think like a lot of women that I've run across in my life, that one of the biggest issues is they didn't know their worth. They didn't have that confidence. Yeah. And it's hard for them to maintain that. It's easier for men to grow confidence than it is for women, I think, because women, they take so much into consideration of other people's thoughts, and because they're tribal, you know, they're worried so much about society and everything and the people around them that it's hard for them to gain that confidence, because I've seen this so many times too, once they get a form of confidence from something, event or something happening in their life, or, you know, just a mental touchdown, and they just, somebody in their life, somebody closer to them always knocks them down. You know, always tries to knock them down. And what's funny is usually another girl in their life, which is
exactly.
And so it's harder. Yeah, so it's harder for them to gain that confidence. And then I would say on top of that, men kind of have to be like it. Alpha is straight up naturally going to be that thing the girl wants that can't have. He's always going to be unattainable. Even in the relationship, he's going to have some form of unattainable. He's going to be a form of an enigma to keep her there. Women love curiosity. They get bored easily, right? So, you know, if they get with a guy and they find everything about this fool and he just becomes boring, everything plateaus, they're obviously going to start looking for a better dude, somebody who will help them in those areas or give them more in those areas. So it's like a guy naturally, if he wants to be confident, he wants to grow to be an alpha, then he has to maintain that. He can't get too excited when she texts. He can't blow up her phone. If she texts him, "Hi, how you doing?" You're not supposed to go on there and tell her how your whole fucking morning is. You know, it's retarded. You know, you just say something simple. You try to, I mean, they have videos of this and it works. It's real. You balance out her text. You never want to seem over eager or over excited. You just don't want to do that. You always want to maintain some form of being unobtainable. It works. It worked in my life. It's worked in some of my friends' life. I have a friend of mine who's always been just one of those dudes who can just get girls for some reason. Like he can go anywhere, and he'll always get a girl. And he's not the most attractive dude. He just has the gift of gab, and he just has that way about him. And that's just how he is. He'll pick a girl, and naturally he can call her that night, but just the way he does things, you know, how he talks to her, you know, and it's always letting her question him instead of him questioning her, instead of him being so eager. You know, he just keeps her, you know, it's that cat and mouse game. You know, I find that women, gravitate towards that more than a guy who just tells them everything right off the bat. You know, "Oh, girl, you're so beautiful. I really want to be with you. Oh, man, this is that," and blowing up your phone. And he's talking about future shit. Those are her narratives, talking about future stuff. Those are her narratives. And me personally, I've always thought the woman should say, "I love you" first. I will never be the one to say it first. I just never have been, and I never will be. So it took me 9 months to tell my ex, and we were together for 3 years. We even got married, and it just took me 9 months to tell her that I love her because I had to truly be sure, and she told me like within the 4th month, I believe. So it's just like, it's just one of those things. I felt that if I would have told her before her, I would have gave up some form of my own personal power.
I think for me, a lot of the power in a relationship literally just resides in what will you say no to, like just saying no, right? So I agree. So part of me is, that's hard for me. I'm a very social person, right? I like to talk. It's what I do. Like, what girls really like for me is they know that when they talk to me, they're going to get an engaging conversation. Because I can talk without giving out my entire personal backstory, right? Like, I can talk about things, like about ideas. I can say things that kind of intrigue her. And then I do agree. You told me a long time ago, when we first started working together, the whole playing tennis. We talked about the I love you thing when I first started dating my ex. And it was like, that is like a golden nugget. Every man needs to take note about playing tennis. Like, you can be socially, I'm not saying be boring, but especially if you are texting, if you see that she's trying to pull back in the conversation, you equally pull back. Don't press, right? Like, you just slowly and organically pull back. Now, I'm typically someone who's an initiator, right? I believe I'm going to talk to you when I want to talk to you. If you don't reply, that's on you. But I'm going to say hello, I'm going to say what's up when I want to. And it's typically because it's like, hey, like, if I text you like twice and you don't really reply, like, it's just, I get it. Like, I can read it. And if you want to talk after that. So I don't really play the coy game a little too much. But in the sense of like being available, my antidote to that is just be busy.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to worry about waiting for, when am I going to text back? Am I seeming too eager? Live your life.
Yeah.
Be busy.
I like to say that because
I'm sorry. Girls don't really want to be number one. Like, they don't really want to be the number one thing in your life, right? Because if a woman knows she's the number one thing in your life,
number
it's
one,
too much power over you. Immediately, she's gonna know.
You sure about that, man?
No.
Absolutely.
Sure?
Women will say, women will say they want to be the number one thing in your life. It's a lie. It's not real. Because deep down, subconsciously, she knows if she's the number one thing in your life, that means she is your source of happiness, and that's not attractive to her. Like, cause she knows that anything she does can just break you down. That you are the thing. That she is your kryptonite. Like, no one really wants to be that. Nobody really wants a man where it's like because it sounds great at first, but what's going to happen as the relationship continues, you're going to realize that if you're the number one thing in his life, he's emotionally dependent on you.
But that's
what happens.
Like, I don't see it as that. I don't see it as like a power thing. I see it as like a priority thing. Like, when men value their feminine partners and it's like the number one, her security and her happiness is his number one priority, it's not because like, I think as a woman speaking, like that makes me feel like I bring value to his life. Like, I look at power couples like Michelle and Obama and like Jay-Z and Beyonce, and you can tell that they prioritize each other. You can tell Barack prioritizes his woman, and then everything else like kind of revolves around that. I don't think it's a bad thing. Like, because I think we live in a general like society where like men are taught to like go after their careers or like what makes them more higher in social status. They don't really prioritize like relationships with women. So like if a man does put you up on that like pedestal, so to speak, like it's not that I feel responsible for his happiness. I feel like I matter. At least that's how I see it.
I agree with both of you. I would say on Markel's point that
you agree with both.
I know I would say with Markel's point, I would say that he's right because I think men should always have that number one thing, and it should be their dream because that woman was never always there, and he has to have a number one thing just to strive for his life to get him to the points that he needs, and he should always maintain that being number one. And just because that's number one does not mean that she's any less important. It's just that she needs to know subconsciously that she's not his everything, because throughout history, we've seen once you tell a girl or she knows that she fully 100% has you, then she could or she will play mind games. She'll manipulate. She'll do other certain things. It's not a good look for men. So it's always, it's in their best interest, but it doesn't mean that she's not, like, he could say, like me, for instance, I always say this: art, because I'm an artist through and through, will always be number one. Always.
Yeah.
And then my health is number two. It has to be, right? And then she's number three if I'm truly in love with her. And I tell women that. And I've had some girls be like, oh, why am I not number one? And I would say the same thing. Because art was there when I was like 3.
It's crazy you say that, man, because I know that some people who are fathers out there, they understand that when it's a child involved, like, okay, well, your second over my child is going to be my first priority. And it's crazy that they don't see your dream or your goal or your career as like the first. You know what I mean? Like, if that's your career, it's first. Some people who are religious faith, they see God first. You know what I mean? So, but that's okay. When you bring child and God, like, oh, okay, well, I can't compete with that. But why is it an issue with if you're a career driven or if you have this as a passion?
People's perspective on it. People see things greater than the other. Somebody would say that I was ridiculous if they thought God was number one, or they would say that I was not thinking clearly, or I wasn't as thoughtful since, their child is their number one. So it's different people's perspectives on what they see as number one. That's why I agree with Markel on that. But with Aunt Shirley, what'd you say again, Aunt Shirley, real quick, so I can
it's not about having like emotional control over a man. It's more like just knowing that as a woman he values you, like, on that priority list.
Okay, yeah. So with all of my female relationships, even my current friends with benefits, I always try to, so like I was saying in our group chat, I still maintain the same thing. I work out, I make sure I'm looking good, all these things, but I don't, and with even with friends with benefits, I'm always exclusive. We don't fuck around. We don't do any of that shit, just to stay safe and healthy and shit like that. But she was even telling me that she loved the fact that I would try to help herself grow and be a better person, instead of just mainly just trying to focus on myself, not really giving two shits of what she's doing in her life. And just like what most people do, they get together and they only focus on certain things of the relationship, like communication, physical attraction and love, and then emotions. They don't care about any other stuff. And then and all this shit in life starts to happen, financial, all this stuff, and then they start to break apart. But I think, like you were saying, if you both are trying to strive to be better and help each other be better, then there's no reason for hypergamy. There's no reason for anybody who's trying to simp or anything if you're both trying to actually help each other grow. And I think people should do that anyway in any relationship. Red Pill told me, because we worked together, he told me one day, he was like, if there's anything I can ever do to further your career, let me know. That's what real friends do. That's what friends do. That's what people everybody should do that. You should never put yourself out there. Obviously, you never should give more than you should give back, but you should always have a helping hand. You should always try to make someone's life a little bit better while you're trying to make your life just the same. And I think people should do that in all aspects of relationship, whether it be physical, intimate, or just friendship, or boyfriend, girlfriend, or marriage.
I agree. But I agree with that, absolutely. But like,
can I add in? I'm sorry, before you start.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention, you mentioned Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, you mentioned Jay-Z and Beyonce.
Yeah.
So when I say your purpose is number one, that's my thing. I think masculinity is knowing yourself. That's it, right? And you don't look at it from like a good or bad standpoint, because being incredibly narcissistic is still also a masculine trait. Being incredibly compassionate but self-driven is a masculine trait. Like the self, right? It's the singular focus is a masculine trait.
Yeah.
It's like, do you think there were points in Obama's marriage, right, where Obama was doing things for the country, fulfilling his genuine purpose of wanting to be president, where Michelle Obama didn't feel neglected just a little bit? And do you think that he wanted to neglect her to do those things, or do you think he just followed his purpose?
No, I don't think he wanted to.
And then you look at Jay-Z and Beyonce. There's probably points in Jay-Z's career where Beyonce was like, look, man, we got our kid right here. Like, I kind of wish he wasn't in the studio right now mixing all this great music up. But he was like, look, baby, I'm going to be there. We'll have dinner. It's going to be great. I'm gonna give you all my attention after this, but this tape got to go down. It's got to be ready by Friday, right? Yeah. So I'm not saying tell your girlfriend, all right, you're gonna sit in the back seat everywhere we go, but it's like, just know, like, I love you and you matter. You incredibly matter. And part of me pursuing my purpose is whatever I gain for what I'm going for, I want to share with you first, right? Like, you are the first person I'm gonna hand this down to. But this is the thing that I have to do to feel like a man. And just like you were mentioning way back earlier in the episode, where, like, you know, when men from like a lower socioeconomic status are kind of bitter and resentful, they're twice as bitter and resentful for not fulfilling their purpose. Any man feeling like he's not doing what he wants to do.
Okay. All right. Yep. All right. Checkmate. Well played, both of you. All right. I agree.
She's the only female here, so woman here. So, I mean, it's kind of hard for you're holding it down.
I will say this. Women aren't, like, from childhood, girlhood, we aren't really raised to think, like, what's your focus? What's your purpose? What's your dream? A lot of girls are thought to, like, think of others before themselves. And
That's
so,
true.
and they prioritize their families, everybody before them.
Yeah.
And so their dreams often take a back seat to fulfill the duties of family.
I've seen it happen a lot.
Yeah.
My mom was one.
Especially like in more like traditional cultures too.
Yeah. So this is like, so I guess when I'm speaking of like, oh, like it tells me that you value me, I guess I'm thinking it from like a feminine perspective, because that's what we are taught. Like, you put everyone before yourself because you love them greater than yourself. But I think like men are allowed to be more masculine and like self-directed. And because of that, they lead with like, what are my dreams, what are my passions, and then like other things kind of take a backseat.
We are still the main providers, so like we have to have a form to get that, to provide for our families and stuff. And so the culture kind of drives us to that, you know. And just like you said, you know, when you're a kid, what they involve little girls in is being Susie Homemaker more than going out there and being this and that, you know. And then the guys, you know, want to be a fireman or a police officer or astronaut. It's always some form of job. So and we look at that. We were just, you know, we were all talking about that today. Like if men weren't doing that, we wouldn't be getting women, because we couldn't provide for you, couldn't support for you, or we wouldn't be able to take you out or fly you across the country or any of that shit. So
do all that fun stuff, you know.
I will say this though, just to piggyback off of that, I do think men can be greater if they include more people in that spectrum. Does that make sense? Like, if he's like, oh, I'm working a second job and I need to provide because I want to support my family, versus like, oh, it's just for me.
Well, the greatest men have always led nations. They've helped large communities. Right?
But was that for their male ego, or was it because they wanted to help people?
I'm hoping they don't help people. I saw
something. I don't know.
Where it was a post. It was a comparison between Muhammad Ali and Mayweather, right? Mm-hmm. It was like talking about like giving back and being a great man. Mm-hmm. And I think it was Mike Tyson was responding to a comment where Mayweather said he's the best boxer ever, and he was like, "If you were the best boxer ever, you wouldn't have to walk through the streets with bodyguards." And they had a picture of Muhammad Ali walking through like the roughest looking neighborhood. Muhammad Ali walking through the roughest neighborhood, wearing nothing but jeans and a dashiki, right? And he's chilling, and so it's like, name a more arrogant man than Muhammad Ali, and he still gave back to his entire community. Name a more self-directed man than Muhammad Ali, he gave back to as many people as he possibly could. So you're absolutely right. The greatest of men give back. Good men are very self-directed. The greatest of men, kind of like I said, on their journey of this self-direction, they're giving everything. They're sharing everything.
Yeah.
But they have to go get it first.
Yeah.
Can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
But female simps don't even think of that. They don't even think of themselves at all. And that's why it's really easy to get infatuated in relationships and like lose your entire self in them. The end.
Right.
That makes sense. Okay, so with the whatever minutes we have left, I'm gonna end it really soon. I know we've gone long than we're supposed to, but we always do. We always do. But any things you guys want to add on before we end it?
I really liked hearing Markel and Mondre's perspective on what it means to be a masculine man. And like we do recognize there's biological imperative, but like it's really about masculinity is what you make it. And yeah, I appreciated hearing from you guys.
Dang, change your perspective, huh?
I mean, I can adapt. I'm flexible.
Okay. You used to come out here, you know. She used to go over here, fuck boys. So hopefully this can give you a different perspective on different types of men out there. I mean, I think Madre and Markel are very understanding of it. So, you know, we had our disagreements, but
yeah, I mean that's normal.
It's normal. I mean, I think in its total sense, it's cool. We cannot be like the other gender. I mean, like it's an understanding. Yeah. So most people are trying to get in that mindset. Well, I want to understand you. I want to be like, no. It's just there's gonna be disagreements. So, I mean, with that saying, simping and hypergamy are good topics to talk about, guys. I'm learning more about those terms. I've never heard that before. So, but yes, I appreciate you guys putting this intel or putting your thoughts on it. Hopefully people who are on our live stream and who are listening around the world, who are listening to Spotify or whatever case may be, are listening. Yeah. You guys want to say, the fellas? You guys want to say anything?
Wear your masks, wear your gloves, stay away from old people. If you're black, apparently you need to start listening better or you're going to die faster.
Or you're going to die.
Yeah. In the house.
Right. Oh, that part wasn't in the recording. We're just dying at higher rates from coronavirus.
Yes. Stay ass in the house.
Yeah. Wash your hands. Wash your ass. Wash your hands. Wash your hands. Wash everything.
Also, I was doing, just real quick, for anybody who likes to find like singular words to describe entire ideas, so you don't have to sit there and like write everything out or think about everything. I found the perfect word for masculinity today when I was doing some random research. Apollonians.
Apollonians.
Apollonian.
That makes me think of Prince's old girlfriend, Apollonian.
Right? Like you look at the contrast between, I think it's Dionysian and Apollonian. It was like, that totally explains masculine order versus masculine chaos. Like once you read both those definitions, you totally be like, oh, I know plenty of guys who fall into these categories like purely.
Spartans.
They were Dionysians. Savages.
Tonight we die. I already got the beard. We already got the beard. We already got the Spartan beard. We're ready.
I was just noticing that too. I was like, man, y'all really wolfing it right now.
Y'all. Yeah, that's what happens. We don't got,
this huge line.
No, it's hard. It's hard out here. It's hard to find a barber to cut our hair and do stuff like that. So that's why we're wolfing it this next couple of months or weeks, however long this is.
Well, I've cleaned the beard up, but it's like it's thick as hell now, so I'm loving it.
So, you got that Hollywood beard, bro.
Guys got the.
You know you're gonna be a writer. You got that Hollywood beard. Little newsboy cat going on.
Most people don't got those kind of genetics, man.
All he needs are the glasses hanging from the string, right? That's all he needs.
Right.
Oh man. Well, definitely. I appreciate you guys coming on again. Yeah, man. So
female's perspective. Thank you, Aunt Shirley.
Yes. Shout outs for you, the only woman here without Kylie. You've been holding it down. So good job. Good job. It's a couple of things I want to say before I ended. I know I put the link on my live stream on Facebook, so it has a whydatepodcastlink.com. I'm gonna post these videos. I'm working with someone who's a graphic designer who's able to make a virtual 3D image for us. Right. So I'm kind of holding back. I haven't been able to put the videos up there, but I will soon at some point, and I'll put it out there on the website. Patreon. Patreon. I'm gonna keep telling you guys, it's $5 a month, okay, for 35 minutes or 45 minutes before the show, a Q&A. So we might typically have a dating coach on here, love coach, relationship gurus, all on there, so you can ask questions prior. You have that access to it for $5 a month. So it's all on the website, whydatepodcast.com. Still on some shirts, guys. Still working on shirt stuff. Some gear. But that's all I want to say. But thank you guys for listening in. Thank you guys for tuning in on the live stream. Appreciate you guys all coming on. But that is it for me. Let's guys. All right. Cool.
Take care.
Thank you guys.
You're welcome, man. Take care.
All right. Let me try to stop this real quick. Oh, I didn't see you there. Hey, this is going on. This is Dante from the Why Date Podcast, the host, and hope you guys like our content on the last episode. And just letting you guys know that we are going to be posting everything on our website, www.whydatepodcast.com. And for all the information, you can go on here. I know if you guys already looked on the video, it's on YouTube. YouTube episodes are on here. Everything on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple, Google Play, all that is on there. Now, another thing we also are giving out for a lot of listeners who's been listening for a while, we actually have a Patreon. So a Patreon account, if you donate, it's a $5 tier of $5 a month. What we're going to be giving you is some exclusive content, which is going to have 30 to 45 minute Q&A before the episode. So if we typically have a guest speakers on there. We have some love coaches on there, like we had in our last episode. We have a love coach, relationship gurus, motivational speakers. So you got the Q&A time within 30 to 45 minutes to talk to them before we do our episode. Or if you want to talk to any of us, some of the speakers on there, the co-hosts and things like that, we also open that up for anyone out there. Also, we're going to be having an exclusive giving out the prior episode. So we're going to have the episode and you're going to have the first leak of the episode before we even put it on to everybody else to see. So that's all we have. It's just $5. It's a very small number. I know most people are, got other investments, whereas Netflix, I'm not competing with Netflix or Disney Plus, but it's something that we're giving out for you guys here. If you want to tune in there, that's also on the website. I'll put the link right down here. So it's www.whydatepodcast.com. And now I'm going to get back to my work. So if you guys want to kindly just, scatter